Hi, I'm Randall from Randall's ESL Cyber Listening Lab, providing tips on language learning, culture, and human development. And in today's episode, we're trying to combine all three: language learning, culture, and human development. And I think one of the things that I've experienced over the years for me, and I guess one of the greatest thrills that I've had as a language teacher, is connecting with some of the most inspiring teachers from around the world. And as part of my work, I've met and visited many different countries: Peru, Mexico, Thailand, Korea, Japan, China. And in each instance, I've had the opportunity to really be a part of teacher training, to find out what teachers are doing in their own language learning environments. But I also realized there have been periods in my life where I have worked in relative silence. You could say in a vacuum. And I think that we've all experienced this, working by ourselves, working on our own projects. But the challenge in doing that is we cannot thrive in a vacuum. And being in such situations where you're just, teaching on your own really can limit us to hearing the echoes of our own thoughts and perspectives. However, since this summer, in the midst of the pandemic, I've had many opportunities to interview teachers, some of the most dynamic people I've ever met from around the world, and creating these Facebook live broadcasts where people can share their stories, share their challenges, share their frustrations in the midst of some surges and great dynamic growth. And I think what we all see, at least in some of these broadcasts and in your own experiences, is some of the language teachers around the world, many are blazing new trails with dynamic activities, dynamic classroom environments that encourage students to actually become more thoughtful global citizens. And I think today we are going to meet one of those, Mouna Bouhlel from Tunisia. We've had another guest on our show, Riyadh, also from Tunisia, who shared his ideas. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking with Mouna about her country, a little bit about the language educational system, and the classroom activities that she uses to encourage thoughtful, critical thinking, self-reflection, and empathy. As we do this broadcast, what we're going to be doing is tying these activities to many different teaching situations, whether you're face-to-face or online or a hybrid of any of those. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to bring on Mouna to talk just a little bit and introduce herself. So welcome, Mouna, to the episode today.
Hi, Randall. Happy to be here.
Good. Well, let's just go ahead and begin. We have a lot of things to talk about today, and it's just a great opportunity to visit with you. And if you could go ahead and just take a moment to introduce yourself, and then we'll get into the meat of the presentation of some of the activities I've already mentioned.
Well, my name is Mouna Bouhlel. I am from Tunisia. I've been teaching for 17 years now. I'm also an ISA coordinator with the British Council, and later we'll talk about the ISA. This is the International School Award. I've started my career in a rural area in Tunisia. Then since 2008, I've moved to my hometown, which is Mseken. And the pictures you see here are pictures of my school. This is a secondary school, Ibn Sina School in Mseken.
Okay, well, great, Mouna, for that introduction. I just want to go actually to the comments, those people that are joining us. Again, Mouna, you would have to help me with some of these names because I don't. We have
Ilef.
Welcome, Hakima. Welcome from Tunisia. We have a whole number of people coming from Tunisia. Probably some of your friends or colleagues and so forth. It's wonderful to see so many voices coming from Tunisia. Also, Sonia from Spain is joining us. Another from Tunisia. Hontan is joining us. Good morning on a welcome Sunday. We have someone from Bolivia, Agustin. And so welcome and thank you everyone for chiming in and sharing. And again, the purpose of these live broadcasts is to hear your voices. I'm Randall, and I'm with Mouna here, and we're going to be talking about some dynamic language teaching activities. And the purpose of this is to help teachers from around the world use these in different language teaching environments. So let's just go ahead, Mouna, and why don't you just take a moment to introduce us a little bit of Tunisia?
Well, Tunisia is located in North Africa. It is a small country and it has a wide variety of reliefs. We have mountains to the north, plains and hills to the east, and the desert to the south. One more thing is that Tunisia produces the best qualities of olive oil in the world, in addition to very good qualities of dates. And its coastline extends over 1,300 kilometers. So for people who would like to visit Tunisia, they have the beach to enjoy. And if they are interested in history, we have plenty of Roman monuments spread all over the country. And for people who are interested in adventure, we have a lot of interesting, very amazing, breathtaking caves.
And you mentioned a little bit about mountains. When people think about Tunisia, often they think about Africa. We're talking about a huge continent. And what I'm seeing here is it's not just desert. You talked about mountains. I'm assuming that in the mountains it gets cold.
Yeah, and it does snow in winter.
Okay. And so again, we're trying to emphasize not only, I think, the diversity of your country, but I think we'll find a diversity of teaching and of ideas, and that's what we're trying to bring into the episode today.
Yeah, can I add one more thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah, just about the climate of Tunisia. It is a Mediterranean climate. It is hot in summer, cold in winter, but luckily those periods of cold and heat do not last for longer. So generally speaking, the climate is warm and is very nice.
Okay.
So that's it.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that. Just looking at some other voices that are coming in. We have, let's see here, Ricardo from Monterrey, Mexico. Someone else from Tunisia. I can't even guess how to say that name, but welcome. Mouna. Hi, Mouna. Perhaps a colleague. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. This is the first time I see so many people on Randall's broadcast. Well, again, we're excited to hear voices. And as you know, Mouna, we try to acknowledge, we try to recognize everyone that is joining. Sometimes a very difficult thing to do, but we appreciate everyone's voices as part of this broadcast. So thank you very much. Well, Mouna, let's go on and let's talk a little bit about your decision to become a language teacher. I'm sure that for many people, it wasn't the first thing that they thought of. I certainly wanted to be a lawyer. Then I wanted to be, well, I guess I wanted to be a firefighter when I was little, then a lawyer, then go into business and then Spanish education. And now I'm a teacher. So could you tell us a little bit about your decision?
Well, teaching was not a dream job for me when I was in high school. I was always dreaming of studying archaeology, but it wasn't really possible at that time. Nobody really gave me good advice about archaeology, so I didn't know much about the field and how to study archaeology in Tunisia. Well, then my father came to me and he said, "You know, the best job for a woman is being a teacher." And I said, I didn't like it really.
Well, maybe you could have said, well, I want to be a teacher, but teaching archaeology.
I was more interested in discovering and in adventure and everything. But then he told me something that really convinced me. He said, if you would like to make a change in this world, be a teacher. Teachers do make changes. So then I thought, and I said, okay, let it be English then. And then I went to university, had a 4-year course at university, I got my diploma, and then became an English teacher.
Okay. Well, the great thing is we're going to be seeing some of those ideas, that transformation from desire of archaeology, but I'm assuming that probably even your classes, you might weave in some of those ideas even today. But what we'd like to do now is, Mouna, we're going to be focusing on some of your teaching ideas, but could you just tell us just briefly a little bit about the Tunisian language educational system so that people from around the world get a sense of the system there?
Okay, maybe I should first of all talk briefly about the educational system in general in Tunisia.
Okay.
So children start primary school at the age of 6. They stay 6 years at primary school. Then they move to prep school, and they spend 3 years there from the 7th grade to the 9th grade. Then they move to the secondary school, or what you call in America, I think, high school. Yeah. They start first year high school till 4th year high school. When they reach their 4th grade, they have to sit for a national exam so that they can start their university life. Well, concerning language teaching, children in primary school always start with learning Arabic. Okay, so they start writing Arabic and reading Arabic. Then in their second form, they are introduced to French. And then in the 4th form, still in primary school, they are introduced to English.
And perhaps briefly talk about the connection of French, English, Arabic, just so that people get a sense of that.
Well, Arabic, because this is the native language. And we are studying French because Tunisia was a French colony. Okay, and we got the independence in 1956.
Okay.
Well, and everybody is studying English because this is the global language. Well, and students, when they start studying languages, they carry on with all these 3 languages till their last year in secondary school. In addition to that, in secondary school, second form secondary school, they can choose one more language to study. They can choose from a variety of languages, German, Spanish, Italian, Turkish, Russian, Chinese, any language they want.
So quite a range of diversity of choices that students have.
Yeah, that's true. And if we may talk very briefly about the differences or the evolution, if you like, of language teaching in Tunisia.
Yeah, and I think that would be reflective and interesting of how that transformation from the past into what you're doing now. I think there's a good tie-in there.
If we go back to the 90s, just a few years ago, when I was a student in high school, the teachers there were moving from the audiolingual method towards the communicative approach. But it was a hesitant approach because teachers were very much influenced by the audiolingual method and didn't have enough effective training. So they opted for what they called eclectic method, a combination from different methodologies. In the last 10 years, teachers' pedagogical choices have improved, and they are receiving better training, and the focus is moving from teacher to learner. Now we are talking about learning centeredness. So I think
that would, and thank you. And I think that would be interesting to hear from any of the visitors that are watching the broadcast. What has been the evolution? What has been the transformation of the styles of teaching in your country, and how that is reflected now in the types of activities that you do? Well, Mouna, let's just real quickly just check in with some other people. We have from El Salvador, we have another visitor. Hi, Mouna. Another visitor from Tunisia, from Ruben from Guatemala, Elizabeth from Bolivia, Nayeli is joining us from Mexico. She'll be joining us next week on our broadcast. And so a lot of different voices. Thank you very much. Here is a comment in Vietnam. Students learn English at school from the age of 7 years old. And I think that could be a trend in many countries where the age is students are getting younger and younger when language instruction is introduced. Well, let's get into, Mouna, if that's okay, let's get into kind of the bulk of what we're trying to do. Could you just briefly mention the impact of the pandemic on the educational system and what your classes are going to look like soon? Because I think many teachers around the world are facing different learning environments with the pandemic and its impact.
Yes, when the pandemic hit in Tunisia in March, we had to stop school. Everybody had to stop school. And during maybe 1 month or more, we didn't have really a clear idea of what would happen later, what would happen next. So we just stayed at home. Everybody was staying home in lockdown. And then because fourth graders, fourth formers had to sit for the national exam, and the number of cases was really decreasing in Tunisia. So it was possible to go back to school and to finish the syllabus with the fourth formers. So we were all wearing masks, and focusing on hygienic precautions and things. Then summer break, and are still in summer holidays, and we'll be back to school next week.
Okay.
We'll be back, and it will be face-to-face classroom, and the same, if you like, protocol, if we may say, wearing masks and focusing and emphasizing washing hands and maybe some social distancing and so on.
Okay, so students will continue to wear masks. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. And feel free, those that are joining the broadcast, tell us a little bit about the current situation in your country, because I think that has an impact on the types of activities that teachers can do. Well, let's get right into this, Mouna. I think one of the main focuses of the broadcast today is to talk about some of the activities that you're doing and also show a connection to even online teaching and what we can do in those environments. In other words, trying to adapt some of the things that you're doing as needed in some places to online environments as well. So could we then, Mouna, talk now a little bit about some of the teaching and learning goals that you have? Because I think these are a really key to that idea I mentioned at the beginning of creating and helping foster global learning.
Well, in addition to teaching English, I have set some long-term goals. In fact, I would like my learners to become leaders. A leader should have, if you like, a very strong self-confidence and self-esteem. And this is what I'm trying to build with my students. I want them to be fully engaged and involved in the learning process, increase their self-confidence and self-esteem, and why not build their social skills. I would like also to enhance their thinking abilities, empathy, communication skills, and self-awareness. Something else is that I would like my students to become effective global citizens and deal with global issues, to be able, if you like, to face the global challenges that we have nowadays and they will have in the future.
And I think that's important. You know, one of the things when my own students say to me, Randall, do you enjoy teaching grammar? And I say, no, I don't. I don't enjoy teaching grammar. And they often say, well, I want a new language teacher. And I say to them, let me explain what I mean. If the whole purpose of this class is to teach you grammar rules, then I'm not interested. However, if we're focusing on the whole learner, if we're focusing on the ideas that you're mentioning of using English and grammar as the vehicle to greater issues, to greater empathy and ideas, I think that's what you're indicating as well. Let's take a look at maybe some comments that have come in. Online teaching is almost impossible in Tunisia due to many obstacles. And that would be really interesting to find out what some of those obstacles are. Because one of the things, as you mentioned, sometimes we want to be careful not to say, well, just use the internet, when really it's impossible to do so. Blanca says, hello from the islands, Canary Islands of Spain. Thank you for joining. Mesa from the United Arab Emirates says, the pandemic had a positive effect on the educational system in the UAE because all schools were automatically transferred into the online learning. And I think there are positive effects, but I think Mesa and I think you, Mouna, would realize, boy, that transition can be really hard. Another one, Nazreen says, I'm the cheerleader for my students too, because I believe in empowering my students. And I think that's what you're talking about, Mouna, is empowering students. Oh, it looks like that. Thank you, Joe, for chiming in. Condolences to Carol, one of our previous guests whose father has passed away. And very difficult times when, as teachers, you're balancing your own classrooms, your own families, and certainly our condolences go out. And thank you, Tutor Joe, because she has been one voice on this broadcast a number of times. Teaching English in Tunisia is based on learners' needs. It's more the communicative method. Great idea. And Kaylor says, when I was in high school, I wanted to become a PE teacher. Now, Kaylor is an English teacher now. Afterwards, a social studies or English teacher. I definitely do not regret choosing English, for it has allowed me to meet a lot of people from all over the world. And, these are the reasons why we do these broadcasts, is to provide connection. And certainly we would like to be able to, as you know, Mouna, we'd like to look at all of these comments. And just, if we do not make comment right during the broadcast, feel free. We'll be checking the comments after the broadcast as well to acknowledge your input and your thoughts. Well, let's go on then, Mouna, to actually talk about the other parts of the actual classroom tasks. We're going to be talking about these individually today. And I mentioned here about high resource and low resource environments, because there are times when we might be suggesting, not necessarily today, because I think you and I, Mouna, are really trying to focus on any possibility. But sometimes we want to be careful that, use the internet when there are places in the world, including Africa, where students just don't have access to the internet. So could you just real briefly, we're going to be looking at group work, class debate, projects, games, classroom decorations, and global collaboration. And as I mentioned, we're going to be weaving these into some online possibilities as well. So let's just go ahead and talk about these. And let's start with group work.
Well, when I'm preparing my lesson plans, I always try to make sure that I include or I involve group work activity, or at least a pair work activity, because I think these are the best ways or the best activities that can involve and engage all the learners. So whatever the topic I'm teaching, it can be about science, it can be about literature, it can be about climate change, citizenship, gender equality, human rights, poverty, quality education, whatever topic I'm teaching, I make sure my students work in groups to discuss and reflect on the topic. So I don't usually give them the freedom to choose their peers, but I do give them the freedom to move around the classroom if they would like to be standing up or sitting down or moving around the classroom. They are completely free to do that. And from the beginning, I tell them that they have to work on specific activity together, share ideas, listen to each other, and then they are going to present their ideas to the rest of the classroom, and they should be expecting questions and comments from their peers. I think group work and pair work do empower, and I like this word very much, do empower students. They and it gives them, I think, a voice. They express themselves and they become open to others. It helps them collaborate and communicate with each other. So yeah, I do emphasize group work in class.
And I think these are great ideas. And one of the challenges, I think, and we would be interested in your voices out there, your teaching situations out there, no matter where you are in the world. Are you face-to-face? Are you doing a hybrid model? Are you doing online? And in connection with this, what are you doing for group work when you're doing online teaching? And that's some of the things. I know people have been experimenting with Zoom and so forth. For face-to-face, thank you, Mouna, for sharing those, because you're talking about connection, people working together, learning to work with different people in the classroom. And the other thing that a lot of people are doing different types of, using different type of tools, like Genially is one great presentation topic that Kaylor introduced me to from Costa Rica, about creating collaborative online projects. Google Forms has the ability to do that. So thanks, Mouna. And you mentioned about several of the different topics. You mentioned, I know that when we talked previously, you were talking about Shakespeare and other topics.
Yes.
What were some of those?
Yeah, in the pictures in front of you here, it's been a work on Shakespeare. So students read a play for Shakespeare, a simplified version, of course, and we discussed the elements of the narratives. And in groups, I asked them to. One group should work, for example, on the plot of the play. Another group should work on the characters. Another group should work, for example, on the setting. I also used group work to deal or to discuss the issue of cloning and genetic engineering. I started with a little game. Then students had to sit in groups, and I gave them big papers, and they had to. And I gave them cases about cloning, and every group had a different case from the other group. They had to discuss it and jot down their ideas and then present it in front of the whole class.
And I think, and these are great. And I think what we're trying to do is help students become informed about all kinds of issues, whether it be literature, whether it be science. Yes. And I think those are really important.
Yeah, can I add something?
Sure.
Yeah, while dealing with the group work, I always make sure to be there with them. I mean, to boost the self-confidence of the students who are less good at English, and at the same time to check their work. And group work is the best activity that can, if you like, enhance critical thinking and communication skills. We cannot hear you, Randall.
Sorry about that. One of the things, thanks for chiming in, Mouna. Let's take a look at some of the other comments. Mohammed said, in Egypt, we postponed the beginning of the school year to next year for one more month in October. I think that's impacted another. Hello from Costa Rica. Carol is joining. Thank you, Carol, for joining us today. Fethi says, equity and assessment are the main challenges still at global level. Distance learning is chameleonic to all situations. So yeah, depending on our situation, we can greatly adapt what we're doing. Another one is Nelson, how to teach values through virtual classes would certainly, and I know that we're going to be talking about one project here in a few minutes where you were teaching about values. We'll save that in a minute. I think that's great. Carol says, what I do is to choose a nice video, then we discuss it and talk about the values presented on it. Again, we're going to be talking about that in a minute. Thank you, Carol. Students love to mingle in class and discuss. So that's probably true of face-to-face. And I'm sure there are ways of doing this online with Microsoft Teams or Zoom. Another comment, group work is an effective tool to enhancing learning. Great. Nazreen says, Zoom breakout rooms work well for group, but it's not the same as in-person learning. And I think we would agree with that. And we're thinking about any possibility where there is no option. And so that's great to hear. Thanks to group work, students learn from each other. I got rid of using group work in classrooms, but I kept it in project works where they work outside of school and present at school. So some different possibilities of what that group type of work might look like. So some great ideas. Well, let's now go on, Mouna, to talk about the next point is with games.
Yeah. Games are good warming up activities. You know, students who come into the classroom a little bit bored or tired. Now, when we start the lesson with a game, so they become all focused and all involved. Sometimes I start the lesson, as I said, with a game. Sometimes I keep it for the post, if you like, the post listening or the post reading activity. Now, in the first picture, as you can see, this is the spinning wheel. And I use this activity as a post-reading students read a story, and I made this spinning wheel at home using a pizza box and just some cardboard.
Great.
Yeah, and every pizza slice contained a different topic, which is, of course, related to the story they had been reading. So, and students were really excited, to spin the wheel, and all those reactions when they come to read the topic. Sometimes they don't like it, sometimes they like it. I just tell them, you cannot change it. So this is the topic you should work on. And they did work on these topics, and they had a great time. Concerning the second one, the picture on the right, we moved all the desks, and all the students stood up, if you like, in a circle. And I brought a ball, I gave it to one student, and I said, you make up a story. You have to start with mentioning at least one main character, the setting, and at least one main event. So you set your imagination free, and you come up with a story you like. It can be real, it can be imaginary, as you like.
And one of the things with this, Mouna, if I might interject, a lot of people are saying, well, I'm in an online teaching environment. I can't do this, but I've heard of people doing with Microsoft Teams or Zoom. With the Zoom, you have the gallery view of the different students, and students pretend to throw a ball. They say the number, the name of one of their other colleagues, and then pretend to throw a ball. So those are certainly ideas.
Yeah. So when they throw the ball, the one who receives the ball has to carry on, has to continue the story, and he may kill a character or bring up a new character, change the setting. Okay, it was a lot of fun, and they did laugh a lot. And in this activity, I was testing and practicing the elements of the narrative.
Oh, good. So recycling, even though it's a game, you have threaded connections to the content that you're doing in class. And that's great. Here are just some others for those of you that probably are familiar with these. And thank you, Mouna, for sharing a couple of ideas. There are many other websites out there, Kahoot, Quizzes, Socrative. You can use Zoom that can do similar activities. Well, they can't, it's not exactly the same because you're not together. And then one of the things is, one of my favorite websites is called Online Stopwatch. And on this website, you have classroom timers, random name pickers. So you can actually create a wheel and click on it, it spins, and then you select a student's name. So there are different ways that you can do this, I think, in the classroom. Let's go back to some of the comments that we're getting right now. Nesreen, those games sound so much fun. Thank you for sharing those, Mouna. It is possible and effective with small classes. Yeah, that's the question I think we're trying to also propose, and we'd happy to hear some of your ideas of things that work in small classes and large classes. And Mouna, some of our teachers have classes of like 50 students. So maybe, and this is just one idea, if by chance you're doing that activity where they're passing the ball and telling stories, maybe you could break, if you have 50 students in the class, you could break them up into smaller groups, and then you as the teacher could go around and moderate. Possibility.
Yeah, I once had a class with 30 students, 30, and the game was, I brought them pictures of natural landscapes. I pinned these pictures on the board, and I divided the class into 3 groups. So 10 in every group, and every group had one task to do related to these pictures. One had to label these pictures, and the other group had to give the definition of some words, and it did work.
And I think it's just customizing things. Najed says, group work is very difficult to do in Tunisia classroom, but it has amazing impacts on students. So maybe it's the way in which we involve that. I know that some ideas that teachers share, might work great in a classroom of 20, maybe will look different in the class of 50. And I remember one teacher once saying to me, I have 108 students in my listening and speaking class. And certainly there can be ways of adapting it. And I guess that would be a whole nother episode of group work and how we could accommodate. Let's see what other comments. Games are impossible in classes with about 40 students. So maybe it's how we customize the game. We're not saying that these are always easy situations, but we're always thinking, okay, how can I adapt? How can I adapt? Bisma says the number of students in our classes makes a difference. So maybe how can we customize the class so that you can do that? And the last one is says gaming is a great opportunity to practice speaking and creativity. Well, great. Wow. That could be a whole nother topic, but thank you everyone. And we appreciate, let me say, we appreciate you sharing the challenges that you have in your language classrooms, because it's not always easy. We don't want to say and give you a simplistic answer that this and this can work everywhere, but we're thinking about how to customize things as well. So let's talk about group work in person and online. Let's talk a little bit about that.
So this is project work. Here, generally speaking, I assign at least one project work every term to my students. But last year, because I was engaged with the British Council in the ISA, in International School Award, I had to work on 7, or I had to supervise 7 activities. So I assigned more project work. This one, the one on the left, the students prepared a questionnaire about video games and then had to ask 200 students in our school, then prepare, if you like, presentation for their findings. And this group chose, if you like, PowerPoint and presented their findings. The other group on the right also asked 200 students, including administration staff, and even our school principal participated. He is the one in the middle. And some other teachers also participated in the survey, if you like. And the topic was about reading. And some of the questions were, who reads more, girls or boys? Do they read in Arabic or in English or in French? So these kind of questions. And this group chose to make or to present their findings on posters.
And I think, sorry, go ahead.
And I think this kind of activity, this is what I call taking action and making decisions and solving problems. And the students did all these things. First of all, they collaborated together. They organized their work together. They went out, if you like, and asked people. And they had different types of, if you like, reactions from people. Then they sat together. It's kind of, I made them feel responsible for the work they are doing. And they had to come to school and to classroom and to present it. And of course, expect questions from their peers and even from me as their teacher.
And I think this really encourages, learner engagement, meeting new people, introducing yourself, accepting rejection when people say, I don't have time or I'm not interested. And one of the things that I often look at this is that in some cases, we have high resource environments where we have all of this technology, all of those possibilities. And then there are other, what we call maybe low resource environments. Now, again, a low resource environment might be where they don't have all the technology, they don't have the internet, they're sitting under the sun, under a tree. There are all kinds of situations, but you're doing both, because I'm certainly both are possible and both emphasize different skills.
And I'm very proud of my students, honestly speaking. I'm so proud of the work they have done and all the self-confidence they have acquired. Yeah. Remember, they are speaking English.
And it's not easy.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Especially when you're like on a live broadcast like this. Well, let's take a look at some comments. What else have come in? First of all, We're talking about collaborative work, whether in the same class or international partners. You're going to be talking about international partners. Group work enhances planning, responsibility, speaking up. Absolutely. And where can I find the links for those websites? What we're going to be doing is right after this broadcast, I will be in the show notes. I will be including those websites that you're seeing in the PowerPoint so that you'll have to go back and watch the broadcast again. We want to make it easy for you. Rashid says, let's see here, says, games are students' favorite parts of the lesson. And those are important too. And I want to just mention really quickly here is that another comment, gaming is great opportunity to practice. I think one of the things, and I'm going to go back to Bejma's comment, is I think it would be great to have a total episode on how to do group work or class activities with 60 students or more. I mean, because that could be a whole nother realm. And it would be great if we had more time to talk about it, because I know that is a whole nother field that we could discuss. So let's go on now. We've talked about in-person work. And one of the things before we move on, for some teachers that say, well, I would like to emphasize the use of the internet for doing online service. And you, Mouna, were talking, most of it was like face-to-face interviews. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
That was face-to-face interview.
Yeah, you can't hide behind a computer to do that. You have to walk up and meet people. And one of the things I've either by itself or in conjunction with face-to-face, I've used Google Forms, great tool to actually create surveys. Mentimeter, I love Mentimeter because can be used for doing quick polls, and the number of people that you can do is unlimited. You can't create as many questions as you can with some other services, Poll Everywhere and SurveyMonkey. So those would be on a different broadcast, but we at least wanted to suggest or put out there a couple more ideas. All right, let's talk about designing leaflets and posters.
Yeah, this is one more project that my students worked on. The first picture, this is third form. The topic was touristic sites in Tunisia. I gave them the freedom to choose their peers, so they did work in groups. And I also gave them the freedom to choose any site, any touristic site in Tunisia, and of course to design a leaflet or a brochure or a flyer. And I received very beautiful designs and very beautiful work. And the students were very happy while presenting their work. I also emphasize, when dealing with such projects, I tell the students from the beginning that they are not allowed to just surf the internet, paste information and pictures, and then you come to class and you tell me, Miss, my project is ready. I told them from the beginning that they were going to present it, that they should expect questions, and they should be ready to answer these questions. So they had to know what they were putting in their, if you like, leaflet. Now the second, yes?
Yeah, it's kind of like that engagement, not just cut and paste, but you actually have to think through it. And you mentioned the second one.
Yeah, the second one, it's about bullying. It's a whole activity on bullying. I gave the students different tasks, and I gave them the freedom to choose again among these tasks. So this group had chosen to produce a poster as part of the campaign against bullying. And they did that. And by the way, whenever I give a project work, I give them a certain period of time. I tell them, for example, you have to prepare this in a week or in 2 weeks or after 3 weeks. So I give them time. Another group worked on writing a speech, as I said, as a part of the campaign against bullying. Another group wrote poems. Other students who made some drawings, very beautiful ones. And some other groups worked on plays, writing and enacting plays.
And let me hold that moment because we're going to be talking a little bit more about that. And the
Okay.
idea of connecting, if I may say, the idea of bullying. You probably could go into, I'm sure you could go into any classroom, into any school, and find people, students that are being bullied. And it's not just limited to students in the workplace. And so this idea of focusing on one topic that really has an impact, no matter where you go, I think was of great interest to me. And I think this probably leads into right here some of this project work.
Yes. These are two plays on bullying too. The first one done by the fourth graders. It was an amazing role play, if you like. Um, and the second one was also about bullying. The first one was a kind of TV presentation, like a TV presenter and the guest and the victim of bullying. The second one, a whole play showing a girl being bullied, and here we can see the girl in green and the boy in black playing the roles of parents, and they were talking to the bully who was bullying their daughter. It was a very nice play. And these students wrote their script by themselves and played the whole thing, if you like, performed the whole play.
And one of the things I like about this too, Mouna, is as people write plays like this and they share, like it looks like that one student in the middle on the picture to the right looks angry.
Yes.
Anger is a secondary emotion because under anger is hurt, frustration, pain, and trauma. And I really like this activity. And where you've combined it, maybe one option would be for those people that say, oh, I'd like to share this with more people. Maybe they could create a blog, YouTube, Facebook Live broadcast or video. And the other thing is that we're going to paste in the notes that excellent website that you and your students did to actually address bullying. I think it would be a great resource for others, and we'll be posting this afterwards so people can see
the whole activity on bullying is on that website.
Yeah, well, so we'll be sharing that in a few minutes. Mouna and I would also be interested, what kinds of projects, group projects have you done? Have you done anything with leaflets, done anything with posters, whether they be in face-to-face environments or online? We want to hear your voices. Let's see what other comments that we have coming in right now. Project work allows teachers to discover pupils' creative minds. Absolutely. Samia says production of leaflet brochures or plans are really an ultimate goal of any hardworking teacher. There you are, Mouna, getting praise from people. But I know that you and Mouna, I know that so many teachers are doing something similar, and it's great to hear that. Great ideas. Nayeli, thank you for Mexico sharing that. Great. Eager to attend an episode on large class activities. So again, I've said this before. I think a lot of teachers are saying these ideas are great. And what can we do perhaps in a different episode to say, if you have 40, 50 students, what can you do in a class like that? Now, Nazreen says, I teach adult students and they love anything that involves talking, but not so much on making projects. So the idea great point. How do you engage learners? And I know that, Mouna, you probably have many ideas on these topics. As because of limited in time, we realize that we don't have to comment. And what we'll try to do is right after the broadcast, maybe today, when you have time, Mouna, is share any comments regarding other comments. Unfortunately, in Tunisia, students are not interested in learning language, especially English. Sometimes we teachers find ourselves facing dead classes. And that can be a combination of finding out how do you engage the learner. That's another episode of how to engage learners, especially
Can I comment on this?
Absolutely.
Very briefly. A few years ago, there was a point when I was going to school and I was telling myself, what am I doing here? And I was facing students who really looked bored and were not interested at all. And slowly, it even made me start to lose my self-confidence. Then I remembered my father's words about making a change. Now there should be a change. A change should take place in my classes, with my teaching methods, with my relationship with my students.
Right.
I should get closer to these students to make them more, if you like, engaged, and have them want to study English, even if their level is a bit not really a high level. So we shouldn't really overlook these students who are less good at English.
Yeah.
So, okay.
And I think also certainly you would do as well, is to validate the struggles of teachers who are experiencing that. I don't know, when I see a teacher struggling, I don't know if it's something related to their work environment, to their students, to their family life. Maybe someone is struggling at home. And I think both of us, Mouna, deeply validate that. Well, we're wrapping up the episode, but we have a few more ideas. Why don't we go through the last few slides?
Well, this is another project that the students worked on, also about tourism and holidays. These students chose to play the roles of tourist guides. They put on some traditional clothes, Tunisian traditional clothes. The girl on the left and the boy on the right. So after introducing some of these touristic sites, the girl chose to, if you like, to offer some local sweets to the group of tourists.
And it would be great to hear. I mean, these are great face-to-face activities. They're taking a role. And it would be great to hear from teachers too. For those that are working in online environments only, how could you adapt something similar where students are taking the role? Maybe they're using Zoom or other technologies and so forth to do similar and have similar results.
Yes.
Let's then talk a little bit about classroom decorations.
Yeah, this is one more activity to make the students feel at home and care about their classroom. You know, I thought this is the best way to make students aware that their classroom matters. It needs to stay clean. So when they participate in the cleaning of the classroom, cleaning of the windows, in painting the walls, in repainting, if you like, the door, as you may see on the picture on the right, pinning their work on the wall. So I can guarantee that those students will no more write on their desks or throw things on the ground, and they will make sure to keep this classroom clean. And I think that was a very good idea to keep the classroom clean.
And I think that's a great idea. We had another teacher from the United Arab Emirates, Mesa, who's paired, and she showed me a picture of her classroom as well. And those are great because it personalizes. And I would be interested in hearing, how are online teachers personalizing their teaching environment? Maybe it requires a different skill set or different ideas, but certainly great ideas.
And by the way, all these activities, I'm talking about the classroom decorations, they were done during the holidays. So these students volunteered to come on holiday during the holiday, come to school and do all that work.
Okay. So they take ownership over what happens in the classroom to a great degree.
Yes.
All right, let's talk about this last part, because I think this will be very interesting to teachers. We'll be posting links on this these international projects, because I think this really is a culminating activity that you've been doing.
All right. Now, this is part of the International School Award with the British Council. The whole thing consists in supervising at least 7 activities related to some global themes and sustainable development goals. So the students have to work on these 7 activities, and after the work is done, we have to share these activities with 4 national partner schools and 3 international partner schools. Online conferences are also highly recommended, and I do recommend these international conferences, if you like, online conferences. The first one, we had an online conference with Palestine. Our students put on some traditional clothes, students introduced each other, themselves to each other. They also sang some local songs. The second one, it was with Nepal, a Skype conference with Nepal, and the children from Nepal was very nice children. They had prepared a leaflet on Tunisia, and they showed us. In addition to that, we were exchanging words in Arabic and Nepalese, and we were translating them into English. The third one, a conference with a school from India, and another school from India. One more school was a school from Jordan, and we also had some collaboration with a school from Philippines. Those moments are unforgettable and happy moments for my students and for the teachers as well.
And I know that other teachers might be very interested in finding out more about how to participate in these type of projects you've done. And right after the episode, I'll be sharing those show notes so teachers can find out more about that.
So at Ibn Sina School, in my school, our eyes are still on the award. And hopefully we'll get the award. Concerning this last slide, this is about exchanging culture boxes. We sent gifts from Tunisia to our partner school in Nepal, and we received gifts from Nepal. The gifts were mainly postcards, some traditional clothes, flags, and the picture in the middle. This is me and my students wearing bracelets as gifts from Nepal. The students were very happy and very excited to receive these gifts.
I mean, they actually touch something. I mean, they're touching with their fingers, something that was in the hands of someone else across the world.
Yeah, I think this is a very good thing to do. Exchanging these culture boxes, as you said, you can touch something. And it's a very nice feeling to receive a gift from somewhere else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a look at, again, as we've mentioned through, I'm Randall, and this is Mouna from Tunisia. We've been talking about a variety of different classroom activities, also thinking about, in some ways, of how we can make those also online, do those online as well. Let's take a look at a few more comments as we wrap up, Mouna. Let's see here. That's amazing, from Nazreen, talking about these international exchange. Again, after the episode, I will be sharing a link regarding that. Najat says, you make English a unifying tool. Amazing, Mouna. And I think the whole idea of combining language, culture, human development, bullying, and all of these topics. And I know that someone mentioned at the beginning about teaching values. And that website that you created with your students on bullying is an example of those values and teaching those as well. Here's another one. Enacting plays is very motivating and amazing. My students enjoy wearing costumes and preparing decoration of the setting. Even low achievers like performing plays in front of others. They feel more confident. They're taking on different roles, I think is important. Teaching is based on inspiring and motivating. I think, Mouna, you would agree with that.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely. Alim says, involve and engage equals classes full of life. I really like that, right? When you have something that is inspiring, that you involve them, that you engage them, I think that is so important. And now, yes, Mouna.
It's not just the children or these pupils who are engaged and motivated. It's also the teacher. You get always motivated and thinking what kind of new ideas you will bring to your class, to your students. Because once you start this kind of innovation and creativity and creative engaging, if you like, activities, the students will always expect something new from you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they start really to like English and to like you as their teacher. And, these bored faces start to disappear.
Yeah. And a couple of other, I think this is talking about your leaflets. I appreciate the way she made it clear, no room for cut and paste in her class projects. I think that's great. And Kaylor says, group work enhances interpersonal skills, conflict resolution. I mean,
Yes.
how many times do students say, I don't want to work with that person. I only want to work with my friends. But in
Yes.
life, we can't always choose. Ingenuity. It helps students discover other skills they have besides practicing English. Great. Mouna is inspiring us as ESL teachers, and that's great as well. Well, again, with an episode like this, Mouna, you and I both realize that we never have enough time to talk about everything we like. But to close this episode right now, could you share just maybe some final comments that you might have for teachers as they're kind of forging their way, finding their way in their classrooms?
Yeah, in fact, just make your students feel important. When we raise their self-esteem and their self-confidence, they really come up with things that can surprise you as a teacher. And we never estimate or underestimate, our students, even the less good students. I also would like to say something about this, is that collaboration between students is very important. But what is also important is the collaboration between teachers, especially from the same school. And this international and national collaboration was really very interesting and very fruitful for me. And I do recommend that all my colleagues and all the teachers in the world start collaborating with each other if they have not started yet.
Yeah. And I think that's what the purpose, at least one of the purposes of these particular broadcasts, is to listen to voices like yours, bringing in the voices of other teachers who are sharing their ideas today. That's what collaboration is all about. And you are one great example of doing that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Randall.
Okay. And we want to thank you for joining us on this broadcast again. Thank you, Mouna.
Thank you very much.
Well, to end the broadcast today, what I'd like to do is just kind of as a reminder of a couple of things that are coming up. Tomorrow morning, I will be giving a broadcast, same time, same channel. In the United States, we have Suicide Awareness and Prevention Week. As I've mentioned before on other broadcasts and on Facebook, our son Joshua died by suicide 8 years ago. And the topic is about losing someone to suicide and why friends matter, why teachers matter, and how we can be supportive to family, to friends during difficult situations. Another broadcast next week with Nayeli from Mexico, and the Teacher Swap Shop. If you're interested in participating in a small group with other teachers, this one is actually on grammar, how to spice up your classroom with grammar. It's invitation only, but all you need to do is contact me through Facebook and I will let you know more about that. So again, thank you very much for joining the broadcast. A special thanks for Mouna. We will try to post the links to those things that have been shared throughout the broadcast today. We appreciate all the comments. A couple of last comments I think are relevant. Diversity is important with Mouna as a global educator and Randall in his diverse listening material. Another one, wish to collaborate with Mouna. So someone is wanting to collaborate with you, Mouna. That's great. And thank you very much. Beshma says, I'm proud of you, Mouna, and very amazing people. Thank you very much. So thanks again for joining the broadcast. If you are a teacher and would like to share your voice just like Mouna has, sharing ideas, collaborating with other people, I look forward to sharing your story here on my broadcast. And thank you very much. And I look forward to visiting with you on Facebook or in future broadcasts as well. And that's all for today. Thank you very much for joining us.